It's Monday and time for the Back to Business podcast, featuring Calgary's industry leaders. Welcome today's show host, Kim Hayden.
What if the key to scaling from zero to $120 million in revenue is not about the next widget, the next option, the next doing, but more about how you think differently under pressure? Today on the Back to Business Calgary show, we have Andrew Buzinsky in studio. He is the founder and lead mentor coach within Rodina Ventures. Now, he's here to tell us all about how you're going to build a business, find your brand, and scale. So stay tuned. This is an episode you don't want to miss. But first, our land acknowledgement. We here at the Calgary Petroleum Club, in the spirit of reconciliation, honor and acknowledge that the land on which we learn, work, and live is Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. This place is the traditional homeland for the First Nations and Métis peoples, and today we all are part of this treaty land. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You know what? I have a feeling we have a lot of common ground just in methodology and mindset. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I think you've got a lot that you will be able to bring to, we have an incredibly dedicated audio audience. So this is going to be a great listen, folks. Andrew, you have a really unique background, engineering, CPA, and then leadership. And leadership doesn't always follow a straight path like we see in engineering, and as a CPA, those are very concise, whereas leadership, I think, has a lot of moving parts to it. How did these three components, and then we got to add in entrepreneurship and founder, right?
Yep.
How did these components come together, the experiences with them to build Rodina Ventures?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like as you said, the road to your current situation is not a straight line, and it was not designed by any stretch by me. That's for sure. It just kind of happened, and I guess I've been opportunistic in what's come along my way and just sort of gone with it. But yeah, I like most Calgarians. I'm from Saskatchewan originally. And, I wanted to be an engineering manager. That was my goal. And when I got there early on in my career, I realized it probably wasn't for me. I can do the math, I can do the analysis, but I didn't want to do that. I want to get things done. I want to achieve things. And so I'm always driving for results, which always put me in conflict with the people working for me who are very, cautious and, calculating and so on. So I knew there was something different about me. I just didn't know quite what it was. But what I realized is that I really prefer building teams and organizations more than I like building stuff and building equipment. And, it took me a few years, but I realized that I needed to go back to business school and figure out how to build companies and build organizations. So yeah, sort of, early 2000s, I went to Queen's Business School and did the MBA. And, I had a rare opportunity at that time. And Queen's had a joint program with CMA Alberta. So you could get a CMA, which is now a CPA. So I took advantage of that. My accounting professor at that time said, when you get done your MBA, you're going to want to do something. And sure enough, I had this big void in my calendar. So I did that. So I ended up with a CPA now, which I keep current.
Again, which is a very linear kind of, it's like sequential, right?
Yeah.
It's that side of the mind that is still like, you still have this kind of this wanderlust over here to do something like break things and move fast, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And this is double check, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm seeing that there's still a gap here. So take us through the next iteration. So into your leadership space.
Yeah. So then, I made it known where I was working at the time. I wanted to run an organization, and I was in a pretty large oil and gas service company, and, it just was nothing really coming my way. So after a little while, I moved on. I had an opportunity to come back to Calgary. I was in the Edmonton area at that time. So I came back and had the opportunity to do a turnaround. So it was a public company that had bought two fierce competitors, and these two companies did not like each other. And really oddly, when they put them together, they didn't get along very well. Can you imagine that?
Go figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like War of the Roses. Yeah. Chandelier swing in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Dumpster fire, all that stuff. So that was a great opportunity. And thankfully I had the training through the business school and through my CPA stuff that I was confident in my skills. I knew exactly what I had to do. And I had 3 or 4 pages of my notebook of things to do, first of which was figure out how to make payroll that first Friday. Yeah. So that was sort of my crucible of leadership, is getting dropped into this. And I was there for a couple of years, but I learned a lot.
Oh, yeah. I can't even imagine being in a combative space to make it productive, because that's typically they're two opposite things, right? So let's talk about Rodina Ventures and if this is the first time our public has heard of what Rodina does, can you walk us through a little bit? What's the heart of your business, and why Rodina is where you're at now, what you're building now?
Yeah, great question. So I left the corporate world in 2019. I guess we'll talk about that later. I had a desire to do something different, and I simultaneously started an oil and gas service business overseas and started this consulting business. And really my understanding of entrepreneurs, which I was slow to get to in my life, was most entrepreneurs have more than one income stream. And so I figured, okay, well, let's start doing that. And so the consulting business was oil and gas based. I was helping companies either move to Canada or move outside of Canada, since I had a lot of experience in international. And so that's where it all started off. And that was great. What was even better was a couple of years later, my wife joined me as a partner in the business, and she's an HR executive. And so she has the part of the brain that I'm missing.
Everybody needs to have that partner, because that's the partner I'm looking for, is somebody who knows how to keep all the T's crossed, I's dotted, make sure everything, nothing's loose.
Yeah.
Everything's reported. So you're even though you started with an engineering and a CPA, you really are a entrepreneur at heart, right? That's the kind of that feel that I'm getting from you. So let's go through the journey of, so you left in 2019. You were in a fortunate position that you had people right out of the gate within the industries that you'd already been in, that you could start working with, right?
That's right.
So let's talk about the evolution of Rodina, because it can't be from 2019 to 2025 being the same thing, because I don't think anybody's the same since 2019.
No, not at all. Yeah. So, the classic, business word is pivot. So, I think we've worn out a few pairs of shoes pivoting several times. And, like I said, we started off in our own lanes. Dawn and I, she was doing HR fractional work. She's got a passion about culture and teams. I'm more of a business structure and, business planning and growth. And so we had these sort of parallel businesses going on. And actually her clients started asking about coaching, executive and leadership coaching. And, at the time I sort of dismissed it, but, she signed up for the training. And by the way, becoming an executive leadership coach, it takes more hours than getting your private pilot's license.
Yeah.
So,
which, if you don't mind me asking, what training program did you go through?
So we went through the International Coaching Federation compliant, and the vendor was called Canada Coach Academy. Yeah. It was all online. We didn't have to go anywhere. It was all weekly sessions. So we took that route.
Wow.
So,
okay. That's awesome. Because that's a good, I know several people that I've worked with that are in that same space.
Yeah, nice. And it's a great organization. ICF has a chapter here in Calgary, and it's great to have that network nearby. So, we were contemplating doing coaching, and, I had a coach a long time ago, but I didn't really see the value in it, to be honest, back then. But,
It's hard because I think the term coach has really been in many ways run through the mud, right?
Yeah.
But it's no different than the term realtor, right? People say I'm a realtor, and you've got 10% that are operating very professional, high level. It's their focus. They're constantly getting, the continuing education. They're in it to win it. And then you've got, 60% that can't quite figure out how to crack the code or what they need to do. And then you got that, bottom 30%, which drive cabs and then say, oh, by the way, I'm also a realtor.
That's right.
So, unfortunately, I think that the word coach has gone through the same kind of mill that real estate has. So when you look at that, how did you get past being pegged as a coach, offering coaching, and reestablish the value of that term in what you do?
Yeah, as you pointed out, anybody can say they're a coach, and I've met a lot of them. You can just decide to be one tomorrow, and you are.
Yeah.
But Dawn and I are both learners. We're just lifelong learners, and we are both D's in the DISC style. So we accomplish things. So we went for the training and got that. And really, we want to differentiate ourselves.
Yes.
Between the amateur coaches, let's say, and the professionals. So we wanted to do the training, get the certification, get some more letters behind our names, which I'm running short of alphabet space for. But really differentiate ourselves as business people come coaches. Both of us have 30 years in business and have been in the boardroom and on the shop floor and in the field, and I think that's a really good aspect of coaching because of our practical mindset to help our clients solve problems. And as you probably know, coaching is not about advising, right?
Correct. And that's I think that's a difference between a professional person that does coaching versus a coach that reiterates, a book they read, or because I think the difference is the individual who can look uniquely at each person's field, each person's offer ladder, each person's product, and they can actually see individually ways to improve that person's versus, oh no, it's I've got to connect A and B and C, and we have to do it right exactly like this. And I think that's a challenge that a lot of people have seen within the coaching space is finding solution-oriented mindsets versus protocol mindsets.
Right.
And unfortunately, you need both in order to make a company run. Otherwise, you'll only run out of money if you're only solution-oriented, because you'll never get anything concrete. And thank God you have Dawn, because quite frankly,
thank God.
Is she looking for additionals? Because that is always the biggest challenge. Is it's very hard to adopt both sides. Either you're front of house,
Yep.
or you're back of house, and very few people can be both. Right?
That's right.
So I'd like to, if you're open to it, go down kind of the road on this a little bit. Can you share with us a little bit around the type of clients and industries that you're currently working with? What would be kind of a dream one that you'd like to work with, something that would be kind of unique or outside of your current portfolio?
Yep.
And where do you see the most common challenges?
Those are great questions. So, yeah, I would say big picture, our focus is on companies that have a growth mindset. We're both ex-oil and gas people, and we've come through the roller coaster of the energy industry, hire on Monday and lay off on Friday. And, but the energy industry has been a great place to gain a lot of skills, and it's still a growing industry. And so we've discovered that our mentality and our profiles are best suited with executive teams and entrepreneurs and leaders that have a growth mindset. So in other words, not only do they want their business to grow, but they want themselves to grow individually. And
Yes.
so for us, that's the perfect client profile. We do a lot of work with oil and gas services companies at the moment. We have some other industries that we're involved with, but we'd love to get sort of that mid-market business that needs a little bit of coaching and a little bit of consulting. Because as you pointed out, quite frankly, most companies need a little bit of both. There is a lot of answers in the mind of the executive entrepreneur, but there are just some things they can't do or don't know. And so that's where the consulting piece comes in as well. So we're really, to wrap it up on Rodina, we're really just we're a company that helps businesses grow. We help the people grow individually, help them clarify their thoughts and come up with the solutions where they can. And if there's a lack of skills or knowledge, we can come in on a consulting basis and help as well.
Since 2020, since COVID, we've seen, it's a confluence. It's this like a black swan effect within our professionals over 45, 50, right? So these are people with huge amounts of lived and earned experience, very smart people, but they tend to have always been in a corporate space and such. And a lot of them are now having to venture out and build their own businesses, right? What is your greatest challenge that you see with people who are coming out of a corporate infrastructure or academic infrastructure, right? So these are people that this is how you do this. This is the technology we use. This is, everything is laid out and they're in that space. And now they want to move into that consulting and that fractional CFOs, fractional CEOs, fractional COOs. These are becoming more and more common. You go on to LinkedIn and you're seeing them, and their resume is amazing, right? What is the greatest challenge you're seeing within this sector of transition from corporate or academia over into the entrepreneurial, fractional, or consulting space?
Sure. Yeah, great question. I hear time and time again, imposter syndrome. Somebody has been working in a large corporation for 20 years, and then suddenly they're hanging up a shingle and saying they're doing whatever they are. But everybody's got the devil and the angel on their shoulders, and the devil seems to be the one that has got the loudest voice. And it's just a lack of confidence. And it's people that have maybe just felt comfortable with all of those large company programs, and they've got HR and they've got business development and they've got marketing, and all of a sudden you are that person, all of those departments. And so there's a little bit of lack of confidence there. And then of course the other piece is they don't know what they don't know, right? So not having the skills. But I would say the other one is just having that growth mindset. You can always, getting an extra 10% is harder than tripling your business, right? Like getting those extra $10,000 per month, it's easier to get an extra $100,000 per month. So it's really that thinking big, that growth mindset, and lack of confidence I see a lot of times in entrepreneurs.
A little off topic here, but when you mentioned imposter syndrome, and I'd like to take this take a different lens to this. When people are working in a corporate or professional space, they are representing somebody else's brand.
Okay, yep.
And when they come into their own space, now they are the brand.
Yep.
What are some ways that you've helped people move past the imposter syndrome and move into the ownership of the value of their own brand, their own name?
Yeah. Okay. So, in most corporate offices I walk into, they have a set of values on the wall, right? And it says we value people and, whatever else they happens to say. And that those values sort of represent that culture of the organization and the values of the business. But when you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, your values are the values of the company. And so, getting a good understanding of what your personal values, that's one of the first things we do in coaching with new clients is spend a lot of time trying to dig down and really understand, what their values are. And of course, we have little tricks, not tricks, but let's say processes on how we can uncover what they think is a value and what is actually a value. And so I think that's a really big one, is to know who you are. And because if you know who you are, you know who your company will be.
That would be an interesting journey to watch people go through. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. I would be the first person run out on a rail if I tried to work in a corporation, because I'm always like, oh, we could do this, and oh, we could do that. So and that's the greatest challenge with any entrepreneur, is I could do that. I could do
That's
this,
right.
right? Is staying on task. But I can see that can really be a challenge, especially if somebody is 45, 50, 55, and now they're transitioning into a self-economy versus a corporate economy. And I personally love self-economies. I would love every person to know how to do the 7 streams of revenue, how to create that self-economy, so that if you become confident within your own self-economy, if 4 are firing and 3 are still working, right? And whatever. The reality is, I think it shifts people's mindset as to confidence within the future.
Right.
So let's talk about Rodina's future. So, we've talked about, shifting 2019, breaking it down. You were very fortunate in the sense that you already had, kind of that audience. But if we were to look forward, where do you see all of this growing? Where do you see the next 10 years of Rodina, and what you'd like to envision as a vertical for it?
Sure. Yeah, no, that's great. As and our vision for Rodina is that, we want to help companies grow and achieve their visions, right? And helping through coaching of the entrepreneur, the executives, and whatever consulting business or consulting services we might add to that, to all help them to grow the company. And I just want to say one thing about Rodina Ventures.
Yes.
Rodina is actually a Ukrainian word. And my family came from Ukraine. My dad came from Ukraine after World War II. And Rodina means family. And so when I started Rodina Ventures, I wanted to express doing business with us as kind of a family affair. That, it was an unforeseen bonus to have Don join me. But really, when you're doing business with us, you're part of our business family. So that was kind of the idea behind the name. But, our vision for the future is, we have built programs for specific entrepreneurial and executive challenges throughout the sort of life of a company and the life of a professional. So we built specific programs for some of these issues, and we're having some great success with it right now. But I think in the future, what we want to do is we want to offer those programs to other coaches. So be the coach and provider to other coaches, and sort of expand our reach that way, so that we can share the learnings that we've discovered along our journey with other coaches.
So I know, like Maxwell, there's a few out there that are recognized names that do that. They create an infrastructure for, I think there's a lot of people really good in the mentorship space, but maybe not in the development of a business space, because it's 2 different things, right? But when we look at that mentorship space, I've been asking a lot of people this question, because with the efficiencies within corporate spaces, we're seeing smaller teams doing a greater workload because of the efficiencies within technology, which means that there's less opportunity for our next generation of professionals to actually integrate and mentor and work with people, because we learn so much through just like the principle of osmosis. Like we learn so much by the people we surround ourselves with. When we look at coaching and everything, and I am curious, do you foresee in future like post-grad mentorship spaces for people who will be working in a hybrid position, or people who will be working completely remotely? I just worry that a lot of our young people that have huge amounts of potential won't have that same community right around them. Do you see anything in future coming for coaching and mentorship spaces that are beyond the schools and such like that?
You know, we haven't seen any trends yet, but I'd like to think that that's got to be coming.
Yeah.
There's so many young professionals where they're just churning in the industry. They stay for a period of time and they don't get what they want, or they don't see alignment in their values to the company, and they just leave and do something else. And I feel like, you know, there's no stickiness in companies.
Yes.
There's no culture building. There's no
family.
There's no family.
There's no family.
You know. And, you know, a great example, my daughter got a job in the U.S. During COVID, and they demanded that she move to the U.S. because it was super important that she be there as part of the culture. She never went into office one time, not one time. And it's because the ability to work remotely is so easy right now. And I think that, you know, companies say, hey, listen, it's a little cheaper for us. We can cut back on our floor space. But I don't think they're looking longer term enough to see, you know, what are the detrimental aspects to the culture and, you know, not building that family. And I think one of the side effects is just the churn in employees.
Yeah. And I would agree. I do see that, because I think, what is the average now for our Gen Zers? They estimate every 2.8 years there'll be a transition. And that doesn't give the opportunity of consistency, right? It doesn't allow you to build, I guess, all those internal markers as to value systems and work, you know, and I don't want to use the word work ethics, but I guess, and it's not integrity, but like the way you go through systematically and process the work process, right?
Right. Okay.
And I think that, you know, without having that sphere or having that influence is a real challenge. I know one of the things we've done here at the Calgary Petroleum Club over the last few years, which is really interesting, and I had somebody that I was talking about this with the young professionals group. This is identifying people under 35 who are professionals, be it entrepreneur, corporate, firm, whatever your trajectory is. But this gives them a way to engage in the club, but then they have a bi-monthly kind of talk or network. But it's literally just included within the club, and it's to nurture the. And somebody said, "Oh, the club's filling its pipeline," and it's like, I never even looked at it that way. That's brilliant. Yeah, because
great.
I mean, my husband's 64, right? So or 65. So you do have this older thought process around business clubs, whereas, and this is the coolest thing. This is the coolest thing. You know, do you know what the C-suite stats are for female?
I don't.
30%.
Okay.
30% on average, North America, are female C-suite. Right now here at the club, I think it's like 42% of our young professionals are female. So it's like literally reinventing that language. What is business? What are some of the things that you've seen around the reinvention of the language of what is business, especially over the last since 5 years? So you've been building your business within probably the greatest time we have seen since we discovered radio waves,
Right.
how we communicate. What are some of the things that you've seen that maybe people need to be aware of that could help them move forward?
Well, and I just want to maybe have a shout out to the Petroleum Club. I've been a member here for 11 years, and I've noticed the club change. I mean, quantum leaps over the past 11 years. You know, just a small thing about the front lobby, how they opened up the windows and brought the light in. It's almost like they've brought light into the club, you know, bringing new people and so on. So it's been very energetic around here. So I gotta tip my hat to the club.
They work hard. They have shifted. They have shifted so much. And they survived COVID when so many other businesses that were working for or working with businesses did not survive.
No.
And they have done a phenomenal job. But what are some of the things like, so let's take the club, for example.
Sure.
How can somebody leverage a vehicle like, no matter where you are in the world, there's business clubs everywhere.
Yeah.
How can somebody who is building a brand, because that's what they're doing, they're building a business, they're building a brand.
Yeah.
How can they actually leverage their local club?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, back to remote work, like I think that's sort of the norm everywhere now. And I noticed downtown here, parking is pretty easy on Mondays and Fridays, right?
Yeah.
And, but then if you're remote all the time, it's hard to just sort of knock on the next door's, the door and say, hey, what key do I press for my computer, right? And so those connections you don't make. And I think there's an opportunity for business clubs to bring people in a relaxed setting, in a social setting, and make those connections and make the stickiness and create the family that you want to have in a business, right? I think that's probably a big one.
So we're going to close the show out. What I'd love you to do, though, is speak to the next success story that you get to be a part of. Let's just, if I were to call you today, what would the process look like, and how can we engage?
Yeah, super. Like I love working with entrepreneurs. Late in life, I discovered I was one. So I love finding those people who just have that glint in their eye and that vision for the future, and just helping them achieve it. It's, you don't know what you don't know. And, helping people along either as a coach to help them find those solutions that they already have in their brain, or as a consultant to give them the advice and the tools that they need that they don't have. That's really what makes me happy. And, when I was an engineer, I loved building stuff. Like there was that sense of accomplishment. But of course, building something like this, it limits your sense of accomplishment. So building an organization and helping people achieve, like that's really the exciting thing about us, and what we really love to do.
I'm excited. I think that there is a huge future in this space. If you're transitioning, you're needing some guidance, or just even that sense of family, lean in and come to the club, reach out to Andrew, and just make it happen. Because when we each build self-sustainable microeconomies, we create a massive macro economy. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us today on the Back to Business podcast. Be sure to visit calpeteclub.com, calpeteclub.com, to find out more about upcoming events, networking opportunities, and membership. If you are not already a valued member at the CPC, where we are proudly connecting and supporting Calgary's business leaders.